Have you ever wondered why so many government programs fail time after time again, despite the amount of money they spend? And remember, this is your money they're spending, not theirs. I want to share a very interesting concept that's been around for years, yet it's rarely discussed. It's really opened a lot of people's eyes when they hear it. So stick with me today. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Hi, thanks for tuning in on another episode of Uncommon Logic, where our goal is to provide unique insight to important topics that can and will affect your finances and your life. I want to start today by taking a close look at our public educational system. Sadly, our public education system has failed and continues to do so, despite the ever-growing amount of money they spend per student. And let me be clear, this is no attack on the hardworking teachers. Sadly, they end up paying for school supplies themselves out of their own pockets just to keep their classrooms operating. It's unbelievable, actually. But I will say, more money is not the answer, despite what the politicians are telling us. And here are the stats. The U.S. spends more money on education than any country in the world, but students are lagging behind academically. In 2017, the U.S. spent $12,800 per student on public education. But despite all that spending, students in the U.S. have struggled. Pew Research tells us in 2017, the U.S. ranked 38th in math and 24th in science when compared to 71 other countries. And only 2 decades ago, the educational system ranked 6th internationally. 6th. And now to repeat, 38th in math and 24 in science. The system's broken. It's not just education. I mean, you could look at any program run, administered and paid for by the government, and they are far from operating efficiently. And it's costing you and all of us a lot of money in the form of our tax dollars. So today, I want to share a very interesting analysis on why, by design, these government programs do not and cannot effectively do what they're intended to do, which is providing a quality service at an appropriate cost. And this is precisely why these programs never solve the problem they were created to fix. I mean, on a side note, when was the last time you saw a government program that was created to solve a problem actually solve the problem? I mean, when was the last time you heard a government program announce, today we're closing our program because we have accomplished our goal of ending the problem we started to fix? I'll tell you, it's never happened in my lifetime that I know of. And it was President Ronald Reagan who said it brilliantly. He said, nothing lasts longer than a temporary government program. Man, was he dead on. So let me turn the page and explain why this is the case. Milton Friedman was and still is considered one of the most prominent economists in this country's history. He won the Nobel Prize in 1976, and The Economist called him the most influential economist of the second half of the 20th century, possibly all of it. It was Professor Friedman who famously explained why government-run programs fail to provide quality services at an appropriate price, which is why I mentioned earlier why so many government-funded programs fail to achieve their intended outcomes. And here's how he brilliantly explains this. He said, there are 4 ways to spend money. The first way is you can spend money, you can spend your own money on yourself, right? And when you spend your own money on yourself, when you do that, you're very careful on what you spend it on. You really watch what you're doing and you make sure you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. So in this case, both cost and quality are very important to you. The second way is you can spend your own money on somebody else, right? So for example, you could buy a gift for someone, or perhaps you take somebody out to dinner. And when you spend your own money on someone else, you're very careful that you don't spend too much and you try to keep down the amount you spend. You're not so worried about what the other person is getting as you would be if you were spending your own money on yourself. So in this case, the cost of an item is of high importance to you, yet your attention to quality is less. The third way is you spend somebody else's money on yourself. So let's say for example, I'm out to lunch and I'm spending my boss's money on an expense account, but I'm spending this on myself. I'm definitely going to get myself a great lunch, right? But I'm not necessarily worried about getting the cheapest item on the menu. Spend all you want. So in this case, quality is very important, yet costs of the item are not a high concern. Now, for the fourth and final way to spend money is when you spend somebody else's money on somebody else. And this is the government. So let's say you're distributing money to a school system. Now, most people want to do the best they can, right? And make good choices. But they're not going to be anywhere near as careful when they're spending somebody else's money on somebody else. Certainly not compared to the first example, when you're spending your own money on yourself. And if I spend somebody else's money on somebody else, I'm not so concerned about how much it is, and I'm not so concerned about what I get. So in this case, cost doesn't really matter, nor does quality. It was Professor Friedman's examples. They're just so simple and perfectly to the point. In an environment where we are spending other people's money, in other words, your money on someone else, we don't maximize the value of the dollar because we simply don't have much at stake. Now, there are always caveats to this, particularly in our personal life. For example, when we're spending our own money on loved ones, cost can be less important to you because quality is the priority. But generally speaking, this method of spending other people's money on other people is precisely why our government fails time after time again to provide efficient, cost-effective, and successful programs that gets the job done. So with that, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, your financial future is not a matter of chance. It's a matter of choice. And it's never too late to start your journey to financial freedom and peace of mind. I'm John Macgregor, and we'll see you next time.